We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast. Alongside Israel Gutierrez, I'm Jorge Sedano, and we've got a couple of series now even at one apiece. The Cavs even up the series against the Bulls. The Rockets even up the series against the Clippers. But we got all sorts of drama to talk about with these two series. And finally, there is something to get into in regards to the NBA, because we know the NBA loves drama. It really is one of our best soap operas in sports. Let's start with the games, though. So we've got Cleveland, LeBron asserting himself. Chauncey Billups, I think, said it best the other day on different radio shows, where LeBron's like the biggest guy on the block that you got to kind of make him fight. And apparently LeBron got into the fight yesterday. And he did. He got into the fight, and he kind of imposed his will very early, took a lot of shots. LeBron is not a 29-shot attempt type guy, but certainly imposed his will in that game early on both ends of the floor.
Yes, he had to. This is going to, we said this from the beginning, this is going to be a very much LeBron and Kyrie heavy series, and frankly, rest of the playoffs for Cleveland, however long that lasts. The funny part to me is, like, the games are the most boring part, so we're just going to power through this and then get to the actually interesting stuff. But this was LeBron being assertive. And a lot of times, George, we've seen this over the years, him looking to score does not always mean the best thing for his team. And this is what people, they never know what to ask of LeBron, because they're always demanding too much out of him. So, when he passes, he doesn't want to take on the responsibility. When he shoots a lot, it's awkward and he's not efficient, and, why isn't he getting his teammates involved? Yesterday, it was the assertive part. It's the most shots he's taken, 29, in a playoff game since 2009, and that was against Orlando, and we know how that one finished. So this is part of the reason why I don't have very high hopes for the Cavs anymore with Kevin Love out. And, within these first two games with J.R. Smith out, I do think J.R. Smith's going to be a very significant addition back into the lineup going forward in this one. But I thought this game was won by Kyrie and James Jones, frankly, and Matthew Dellavedova. Yeah. The guys that were hot from the perimeter, and Kyrie, for his sake, for getting to the foul line a lot and really sort of stemming the tide, or not needing to take a bunch of outside shots or what have you, being really aggressive and getting to the rim. Those guys won it, because that three-point shooting, 12 of 26, they basically, stuck the nail in the coffin early with all the threes early on, and I think there were 7 of their first 10, and they were like 7 of 20-something in the first game. So, it's like I thought this watching game one, basically they were frantic, the Cavs were. They needed to calm down, run their stuff, trust their fill-ins, the people who are filling in for Love and J.R. Smith, and their offense will still be good enough. So they just needed to work on the defensive end. Yesterday they did that. Pau Gasol, nowhere near as many open looks, only had 11 and 4. In general, the Bulls just didn't shoot the ball well from the perimeter, 7 of 22, and shot, just over 40% for the game. So you knew that shooting wouldn't be sustainable for the Bulls if they were taking as many outside shots as they were. And so they kind of, they struggled offensively. They kind of had that, it seemed like they had that mentality of, we got one already. We will probably just withstand their hit and see what happens. And they tried to withstand the hit, didn't take it very well. They move on to Chicago.
Yeah, no, listen, Cleveland, I'm going to give them credit, because we've kind of trashed their defense all season long. And look, their defense was really bad at first, and it got a little better certainly after the trades, but still only ranked, I think, 14th in defensive efficiency, even post-trade.
Overall, right.
Right. But yesterday they played really well on the defensive end, and you got to give them a lot of credit for that, because, again, it's been kind of the one weak link when it comes to that particular team, or the largest link, I guess, the weakest link has been their defense. So they played really good defense yesterday. And,
well, look what they did too, George. They play. Iman Shumpert was great, and if his groin's an issue going forward, that's going to be a huge deal for them, because he's been he's been fantastic. He's been more of an offensive threat than anybody would have figured, and defense and effort is always there. He's such a great athlete and is in his prime athletically. But they played Perk 12 minutes. They played, like I said, Shumpert would have played more than 29 if he didn't have to leave for a minute with a groin injury, I think it was. And they played Tristan Thompson 35 minutes. And, they didn't start Mike Miller anymore. It's like I said, you could tell that offensively they were frantic in game one, and they just needed to settle down regardless of who was playing. Defensively is where they needed to get their stuff together, and they made the personnel adjustments to fix the defensive end.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, you and I saw this a couple of years ago. Now, granted, I'm not comparing this Bulls team to that Bulls team, but LeBron and the Heat lost to the Bulls in a game one where Nate Robinson went off, and Jimmy Butler did similar things than what he did to LeBron in this first game here the other night. And there was a lot of talk of, Jimmy Butler, the LeBron stopper. And then here comes LeBron the next game, and he imposed his will. We saw a lot of that again in this last game, where LeBron scored 20 of his 24 points in the half court when guarded by Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's a very good defensive player, but when LeBron has got it going, there's not anybody that can even slow him down, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so one-on-one, obviously. There were some times where, and I guess, I was just talking about the defensive adjustments they made. It's odd, though, because in game one they played Dellavedova only 19 minutes. He played 30-plus in this one, and he's not exactly a defensive stopper.
No.
I just think it was more of a mentality, though. Plus, when you get Tristan starting instead of coming off the bench, it's more of a defensive mindset that they have from the beginning because he played minutes-wise about the same. But going back, there was one drive in particular. It was that one drive where LeBron got past Jimmy Butler and just kind of hung in the air for a second and then dunked it as he was going down the left side of the rim. If you watch Pau Gasol during that sequence, it's like, come on, man. Like, he sees LeBron take a first step toward the rim and seem to get his shoulder past Jimmy Butler, and his first move is back to his man, away from the basket. And I'm like, come on. Like, any self-respecting big man wants to go. I mean, people used to, talk trash about Chris Bosh. Remember, he let a couple guys dunk early on in his Heat tenure, and all of a sudden, this guy's soft. He's not a good defender. Well, we know Chris Bosh is a good defender. Pau is not. Pau is not as good a defender, and if they're going to keep LeBron from getting those easy buckets and getting him rolling, because that's what gets him going when he's overly assertive, if you still want to force him to hit jumpers in that case. That's if he's assertive and there's nothing you can do about stopping him, just make sure you put a wall up in front of the rim and hope he's not hitting his jumpers. That's when it's most important, and they just didn't do that. Chicago didn't. So here's the tough part if you're Chicago. You're Tom Thibodeau, you're telling your guys, this is what we need to do to win this series. We need to form a bleeping wall, to quote or to paraphrase Stan Van Gundy. We need to stop LeBron, play physical, play Chicago Bulls defense. And all the players in their heads, whether they love Tibbs or hate Tibbs, are saying, why does it matter? You're gone anyway. Like, there's just some sort of, whether it be subconscious or conscious, you're not going to take every word from your coach as seriously if you didn't know there was such issues between him and the front office, and that regardless of the outcome of this year, in all likelihood, that dude is not going to be your coach next year. So that's where I don't have 100% faith in the Bulls just being able to turn it on defensively. You just kind of hope that the atmosphere in Chicago, if you're a Bulls fan, the atmosphere in Chicago changes, the urgency from your team just kind of naturally ramps up, and that LeBron can't get to the rim as easily and starts missing some jumpers, and then all of a sudden, you're feeling comfortable in your home court. But, defensively, they weren't great helping at the rim against LeBron.
Yeah, by the way, I'm still smirking at the Stan Van Gundy comment. Build a prison wall! Such a great line. So anyway, listen, I didn't think the Cavs were going to be in too much trouble in this series to begin with. I know I took a lot of flack for that from the Chicago faithful. I just think that when LeBron is playing at a certain level, and by the way, he still wasn't really efficient yesterday either. Tom Haberstroh pointed this out on Twitter this morning, that, he got 30-plus points or whatever it was, but on 29 shots. That's not a LeBron-type game.
He said after the game, like, he's not used to be, like, Kyrie basically told him to be aggressive, and that's not his normal game. But if he does it, he's going to do it, and he's not going to worry about his shooting percentage. Whereas we all know, at least in the last 4 years when he was in Miami, he was always worried about his shooting percentage. He had it in the back of his mind, if not the forefront of his mind at all times. And when you get to the playoffs and they need you more, all that stuff's out the window. Just do whatever it takes. Forget about the efficiency.
Yeah, and speaking of which, here's LeBron yesterday elaborating on those particular thoughts.
We're a little short-handed, so the extra shots that I'm getting right now, that will be for Kevin. You even add a couple more extra shots that I'm getting will be for JR. So we're a little short-handed. So, for me, I have to kind of change my approach. I had to change my approach tonight, knowing how short-handed we are, and be ultra-aggressive. Kyrie wanted me to be ultra-aggressive, which I'm not accustomed to doing, especially taking that many shots. I've never been a high-volume shooter. But I have to respond to my teammates. What my teammates want me to do, I try to succeed at doing it. And, so if it's a change of mindset for myself, then, I have to do it if that's what my guys want me to do.
Now, speaking of high-volume shooters, J.R. Smith has been that in his career, and he should be back for Game 3 here of this particular series. Now, I've heard the chirping on my radio show, Sedano Show, 7 o'clock Eastern, ESPN Radio. Download the podcast at espn.com/podcenter. All right, snuck in the plug. And Knick fan is already, in my ear chirping, oh, you know what happened the last time he had one of these scenarios? He shot 28% after the fact and stunk the rest of the way. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's going to be the issue. I don't expect it to be the issue here because he's playing with LeBron. And I think that LeBron is always going to get him good looks and good shots.
Yeah, what's the reason for his struggles back then? Was it just because mentally he shut down after he was suspended? Probably not. I'm sure there was a lot more to that. So This time, if he just, I don't get I don't get the theory that all of a sudden he's going to struggle. He's going to get the same shots. I don't think he's going to be overly aggressive. That's not his job. It hadn't been since he got there. He's not going to all of a sudden change that. When I say aggressive,
he's not going to go Leroy Jenkins on everyone in that video.
He's not going to try. Exactly. He's not going to try to crash. He's not going to try to run, get to the rim every time. He's not going to try to dunk on people. He's not going to take fadeaway contested shots. He's just going to take whatever the classic J.R. Smith shots, and LeBron's going to encourage it. So. I think he's going to be big in this series, assuming Iman Shumpert, assuming it's not just a trade-off, and Iman can't play now that JR can. If they're both at full strength, it makes a huge difference for Cleveland.
All right.
Can we talk about the other stuff now?
Yes. We're going to get right into it right now. Our buddy, Ethan Skolnick of Bleacher Report and Turner Sports tweeted yesterday that the strangest part of the night was a video that the Cavs aired in between a timeout. That implied that a man who was a Cavs fan and his girlfriend or wife or friend who was a Bulls fan, I guess what they were doing was they were imitating the scene in Dirty Dancing where she jumps up and he picks her up, and then he slammed her to the ground, and there is, because she's a Bulls fan, he's very upset or bothered by this. And then the next scene, you see her with a bag of ice over her head as if he has physically harmed her. And
she's apologetic.
Correct. And then wearing a Cavs shirt. And obviously, with everything that's gone on with domestic violence, not that it's ever good to do anything like that or show anything like that or even imply anything like that. But right now, considering the climate, it just goes to show you how tone deaf
it's an open wound right now. It's an open wound, and you're just poking at the nerves with this one, and you have no idea what you're doing. Let's start off by rewinding, if you're in the Cavaliers timeline here, and what was one of their other ideas that got nixed? And this probably would have been at the same time, actually. This isn't one for the other. But they were going to give out 20,000 arm slings to support Kevin Love. What? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's one thing to have, a Band-Aid over the eye. That's just terrible. A Band-Aid over the eye or something, for Dwayne Wade in the years. But an arm sling for 20,000 people? First of all,
it's not cost efficient, I feel like. Yeah.
It's not. And it's like, you think Kevin Love's going to look at that and say, oh, well, that makes me feel way better. You think he's going to say, oh, well, at least I have their support. And wait a second, how are they going to clap with the one hand in a sling? And if, if the game went the wrong way, those things are probably finding their way to the court. So that gets nixed. Genius. That was the smartest thing they've done. And then they create this video. They edit this video. They watch this video. And nothing tells them that it's a bad idea. Nothing tells them, as SportsCenter certainly is on in the background discussing something about draft-eligible players who've been domestic violence issues or, the words Ray Rice coming out of somebody's mouth, and they still go ahead and play it. Like, 15 years ago, people would have laughed and never would have given it a second thought. And now, and that was the problem, and now, even if there wasn't these, if there weren't these domestic violence issues in other sports, then maybe they could get away with it. But especially now, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it was a bad idea. And this organization just doesn't seem to get it sometimes. It seems like they feel like they're insulated and they're separated from the rest of the world and they can do whatever they want because they have LeBron James back and they're on the top of the mountain. It's not that simple. Like, you've got to get it.
Well, their sideline reporter in Cleveland, Allie Clifton, tweeted Ethan a link that said they were trying to emulate another commercial that I guess was on in that general region of the country, where it was two people doing the same thing, but it had nothing to do with fandom or whatnot. And in this case, it was two heavier set people. And when the woman jumped into the man's arms, he couldn't hold her, so she collapsed
It was a mistake.
on him and a table.
Yes.
As opposed to this video where he's
throwing her across the room. Where she has to put an ice bag, and he's throwing her across the room because he's essentially angry at her for wearing a Bulls t-shirt. And then later, she accommodates, and she switches to the Cavs, and she's apologetic, and and he's holding her like it's okay. As if, you know what I'm saying? It's basically, I get what they were trying to do, but they changed the tone of it entirely when they do that. They change the tone of it entirely, and you have to see that. You just have to be smarter than that. I mean, this is way, way worse than, in my opinion, than the dude with the Houston Rockets PR social media guy who got fired for putting two emojis together. I mean, that's an entirely different situation than this, I think. And yet, people in Cleveland are trying to defend this. And I just think it's dumb. It's just, it's not something people should get fired over, in my opinion. It's not something that, it's not they should protest over. But come on, have a clue.
Yes, exactly. No one is we didn't think the Rockets guys should have gotten fired either.
Right.
Again, no one should be losing their job, but you guys need to just know better. I mean, really.
Yeah, but everybody in Cleveland, including, you mentioned the sideline report. Everybody's going to defend it because nobody wants, Cleveland to go down for this, for, what they would consider a silly joke. But, it's not just that.
It's not at all. So on the flip side, there's drama on the Bulls side, too. Joakim Noah, apparently, there are a number of stories revolving around Joakim Noah. He's claiming, he claimed to a security guard that somebody spit on him. There's also a feud between him and Cardell Jones, the quarterback at Ohio State. Apparently, now, if I have the story right, Cardell Jones was on the public address mic, and while he was talking, Noah allegedly mouthed to him, "You ain't in the SEC." And then Cardell took to Twitter and wrote, "Watch your mouth before I give you these hands jump." I'm at Joakim Noah the rest of the series for that comment. He also apparently tweeted a bunch of other stuff that got deleted. But, you can't delete anything on Twitter because somebody has it anyway. But it's just some more stuff that was a little more explicit that we can't get into on the podcast. But the point is, those two don't like each other. Nobody really likes Joakim Noah. We've seen this with Joakim Noah before. We saw the lady give him the finger in Miami a couple of years ago. Joakim has certainly is an agitator, and I'm not saying he deserves.
Let me ask you.
I'm not saying he deserves to get spit on. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But
let me ask, what is Joakim's biggest? What do you dislike about him most? What has he done that makes people dislike him the most? What is his biggest flaw? Because to me, he's a competitor, and he keeps it real. And he's never been cheap in terms of physically on the court. He's never been over the top with his you talk about Hollywood as hell. I mean, I call that keeping it real. Those guys were Hollywood. They were on a stage. They were dancing. That's the way he phrased it, and I don't think that's a big deal. This right here, you can't just joke around with another athlete competitively. Cardell just took that a little bit too seriously, did he not? I mean, there's a dude from the SEC taping up for the SEC. It was funny, and yet he's going to talk about, basically threaten him a little bit via Twitter, which is nonsense. I mean, the dude is standing right there. You're going to tweet about it. Just go talk to him. I think it's over it's over the top. It's just like, come on. Like, I'm caping up. You can play that sound again because I'm caping up for Joe. Like, he's just a competitor, man. I love that dude. He's a great guy, and it's not just because he's a Gator, but that's about 75% of it.
Listen, he can play on my team all day. Like, I'm okay with it. The spitting on people, like, let's stop with that. Like, honestly, like, what are we doing there? And look, this isn't just a Cleveland thing. Like, we've seen this happen in stadiums and arenas across the country in all the different sports. Just stop. There's nothing more disrespectful you can do to somebody. It's just sports. It's not that serious.
No, I mean, again,
you know?
That's just way too far. Like, Cleveland fans are still mad at him because he didn't like that LeBron danced.
Right. Remember that? The
dancing?
Yes.
Yeah. Your response to that is to spit on him, years later? Come on, now that's just disrespectful. Speaking of disrespect, now we move on to headwear.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So LeBron put the headband back on. Now, your first thought was what? Because my first thought was, all right, well, he sort of made a big deal out of looking like his other teammates and how that was a show of solidarity. So what does the opposite mean? Because you put it back on. Like, that's the first thing that came to mind. And then basically that transitioned to a lot of what LeBron says is empty. Because okay. You know one of the morning shows down here, Joy Taylor, Jason Taylor's sister, she went off on a rant. She's a co-host on a morning show down in Miami. She went off on a rant about how a lot of what LeBron says is now empty, and it's true. Because if you look back, remember his speech about not wearing the number 23, and nobody should ever wear the number 23 again because he's Michael Jordan and he's not going to be on the logos, so you might as well have this. Okay, he switched back to 23 4 years later. And now the headband situation, there's other things that he has said where he sort of turned on it. I don't think
so
it's
you're
that
basically
big of a
saying
deal.
if LeBron was a politician, he'd be called the flip-flopper.
Exactly. He's a flopper. He's a flip-flopper and a flopper. He's a flip-flop-flopper. And I think, the headband, just whatever. Just wear it, man. Just wear your headband. It's what you're more comfortable in. And do we have sound of him explaining it? Because I don't buy this explanation either.
The headband, I don't know, it was just in my locker when I showed up in the locker room today. So I decided to give it a go. It was time for it to make a comeback.
Yeah, it just
so basically, if you're going to believe LeBron James, it's all right. My hairline had nothing to do with this. Okay, I decided to look like my teammates. Bam, we are one. Cleveland versus the world, the land. Yeah. Oh, look, my headband's there. Let me put it on. I mean, it's either one thing. It's either one thing or the other. And then LeBron. I mean, this is the guy who's so meticulous in how he lays out his clothes and how he does everything before a game. Oh, what a coincidence! My headband is there. Come on now. Like, he just said, all right, game one was a dud. We lost the game. Give me the headband back. Just say it.
You know what it is? He needed to be LeBron again. So since he hadn't felt like he'd been LeBron, he needed the headband back. It's kind of like Bruce Wayne and Batman. Batman, he needs to have the bat suit,
and that's fine.
To be Batman.
Yeah. Just say it. Just say it. You know what? I don't want him looking like his other teammates because he's so much better than them. Just go ahead and say it. Just wear the headband because it's what makes you comfortable. Whatever.
You know what? It also reminded me of a really bad Sylvester Stallone movie called Over the Top, where he was like a trucker in like an arm wrestling competition, and he used to turn the hat backwards when he would actually need to kind of go over the top and get the extra, strength to beat somebody. So, I feel like that's what it is. That's all LeBron. LeBron is superstitious a little bit probably, and it's like, hey, I haven't been playing like myself. I need to go back to the headband. I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal. But I do agree with you that a lot of the stuff he says is a little hollow at times.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal at all. It's the littlest deal in the world, but, it's fun to talk about.
Oh, no doubt. Now, this Clippers-Rockets series has been fun, too, in its regard, and fun to talk about because, look, I was ready to write off the Rockets. Had they lost yesterday, I was already kind of talking about how fraudulent I thought they were, and a lot of it, to me, falls on McHale. I feel like for the last two seasons, they're very predictable. There's a lot of offense that runs at the high post. It just feels like you know what's coming. And it was the same kind of criticism I had of guys like Scott Brooks and whatnot, and Mark Jackson in previous years, that you kind of knew what was coming. And to their credit, they buckled down on defense yesterday, and they also got to the free throw line a lot, which the Clippers definitely complained about. Blake Griffin.
A lot of free throws.
Blake wasn't happy about it. 64 free throws, whereas Doc said, they had 117 free throws last night.
That ain't true!
And it was, a lot of it came in the second half. Look, I'll be honest, I'm with you in the first half. I wouldn't say ready to write off the Rockets. I was ready to anoint Blake Griffin the best player in the world, and then to say that the Rockets just didn't really have enough to match up, or that I was ready to say nearly that James Harden in a playoff situation when you have, a 7-game series to prepare for is probably, I don't want to say easy, but easier to prepare for because he doesn't really wow you with his athleticism. You almost know what he's going to do. But then look what happened. In the second half, he did what he does. You can't stop him if you're going to foul him every time. And, say what you will about the officiating, yada, yada. But it's not like this is a new thing where you've got Dwight Howard getting hacked all the time. That's happened over the course of his career, whether on purpose or by accident. And you got James Harden going to the line 15 times. That happens all the time. So, you want to keep Trevor Ariza off the line, Jason Terry off the line. How Jason Terry got 5 free throws, the world will never know. So, yeah, you just got to do your job better on everything else because Dwight Howard and James Harden, every once in a while, they're going to have games where they combine to shoot a lot of free throws. And that's what the Rockets do, and they did well. But I think what the Clippers showed me was, in the first 3 halves of this series, basically saying, yeah, that Dwight Howard alley-oop stuff is pretty, but it's getting you 2 points at a time, and we're not leaving the three-point shooters. And, they shot 5 of 26 from 3, the Rockets did. I think they have a good strategy, the Clippers do. And, listen, for those who haven't seen enough out of Blake Griffin, you're not watching enough because this guy has been spectacular in the playoffs. You can make an argument that he's been the best player in the playoffs so far. I know they were on the telecast last night. I think they were going a little too quick on that, but because he got overshadowed by his own teammate toward the end of that San Antonio series. But he's spectacular, and the comfort level he has with his jump shots or his jump hooks, even from like 10 feet out. I mean, he's so confident in his shooting touch right now that the rest of his game is coming to him easily. Now they changed up. The Rockets did the way they defended him. They basically fronted him with a smaller guy, or were really physical from the backside with Dwight Howard at times. But if you get Chris Paul back and really distract that defense, because they were a little too locked in to defending Blake Griffin, because frankly the Clippers didn't really have a lot of options. And Doc talked about it after the game. They were so intent on getting him the ball that they ignored an opposite side of the floor too often, and that was pretty obvious. So if you get Chris back, and you have him distract, and that's no guarantee you're going to get him back for Game 3. You have him, even if he's not playing at his highest level, distracting the defense some. I think you can get an even better performance from Blake. So Blake Griffin, for all the the high flying you're seeing out of Dwight Howard and all the free throws you're seeing out of James Harden, Blake Griffin probably the best player in this series.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has had some issues in the second half, like yesterday. And look, I think it's just a matter of, look, they can adjust to that, like you said. I think you pointed it out earlier. But when they get Chris Paul back, I don't know how – honestly, I could see the series being over in 6. Like, I thought the Clippers were going to win from the get-go. I thought it would be a long series because I feel like they would be tired coming off that Spurs series mentally and both physically. The more and more I watch the Rockets, the less and less I'm impressed with them. And I feel
they're
like
not fun to watch. Even when they're playing well and winning, they're not fun to watch. Unless, Dwight is sitting there dunking everything. Because, like you said, the times that James Harden is
succeeding, he's at the free throw line. Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, the time he's succeeding is at the free throw line. But when he's mesmerizing is, every once in a while he's got the jumper going, he's got the step back and the crazy crossovers and all that stuff. But that doesn't happen all the time. Most often than not, it's, quick beeline to the rim and then try to confuse the defenders. So they're not the most fun team to watch. And their effectiveness, the way they go about things is different because, they could have productive misses and they're fine with that because that's part of their game plan, that's part of their approach. But, yeah, they haven't looked fantastic over the first 2 games. I picked them to win the series in large part because wasn't sure if Chris could overcome a hamstring injury within a series. And, as much as they are the Spurs and they were the defending champs and it was such a tough series, it's still a team that was older and wasn't getting that balanced production. And the Clippers had, the 2 superstars in their prime in that series. So now you're facing another couple of superstars in their prime, or whatever you want to say about Dwight Howard. He's probably still in it. It might get tougher, except, that first game without Chris Paul, you win that thing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe that Rockets aren't really that good after all. So I think we probably need to let this flesh out a little bit. Like those first 2 games were kind of odd, obviously, because, again, no Chris Paul, quick turnaround, everything else. We'll see how this series looks in L.A., because I seem to remember, and I know the regular season doesn't always translate, but there was one, I think the last time they met in L.A., James Harden was cooking, and they won that game. And now I'm going to double-check my memory and see if I was correct.
So anyway, let's get to the good stuff about this series now.
Yes,
Matt Barnes. I mean, listen, man, can we just – and again, the story goes, Calvin Watkins, who covers the Rockets, said that Matt Barnes was jawing at James Harden's mom. Now, I don't know that he knew that was his mom, so I'm not going to sit here and say that I know that for a fact. But can we just leave mom out of this equation?
Let's paraphrase what he said to Harden's mom. He was basically asking her to do him a lot of favors.
Correct. To bleepity bleep is bleep. Right. To bleepity bleep is bleep.
And I don't know if he would be asking such favors of somebody if he knew it was James Harden's mom. If there's anybody in the league, if there's like a handful of people in the league who would be able to ask such favors of some player's mom, Matt Barnes would be in that handful of players, no?
Because he just doesn't give any bleeps.
No. Zero given. Zero.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way he knows that's his mom, right? Like, there's no way that he knows that's his mom.
I would hope not. For all human decency, I would hope not. But, maybe that's one way to get into a guy's head and, pick on his family on the court.
Well,
but
wasn't there an issue when Harden played in the finals? Wasn't he going through like a breakup?
Man, see, those are the type of stories that I don't really follow that much. I just remember seeing those two go at it a couple of times, and Matt take him down one time, and they had that one little bump in this game as well where Matt got the technical.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is about maybe he's doing that because you're right. Maybe he thinks he can get in his head because I don't know for sure. I seem to recall that James Harden may have been going through a breakup. I think he was dating somebody somewhat famous at the time during the finals, and they might have been going through a breakup, and some people feel that was the reason he played so poorly in the finals in 2012.
That was Trina. Wasn't that Trina?
Yes. Now it's starting to slowly come back to me.
That was Trina. Yeah. No, she was in Miami, and everybody said she ruined the Oklahoma City Thunder's chances at a championship. Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so maybe that's what you think Barnes is alluding to? Like he thinks he can get into his head?
I mean, I don't know. That'd be kind of a stretch. I mean, first of all, that was, 4 seasons ago, 2012? Yeah. And I don't know if that's where he's going with it, but regardless, this is not, again, it's a further bad look for Matt Barnes if that's indeed what he was saying. But let's just say he has the argument that he didn't know it was James Harden's mom. And what? So he's just saying that to some female fan on the front row? That's not good either. Like, that's almost more of a suspendable offense because you're not just trying to get into somebody's head by talking to his family. You're just talking to a fan just dirty. And that's another reason the main reason to not like this.
Yeah, let's stop with mom. Like we don't need to get mom involved here. Like, let's leave mom out. It's almost Mother's Day, man. Come on.
I know, it's the exact wrong time to do this. But, hey, this is a great storyline because now you're looking at James Harden and saying, all right, man, he's that's the ultimate of insults. And you're gonna have to respond. And there's only one way to respond if you're James Harden. You can't do it physically. You got to do it with your game. And he's got to have a huge game against Matt Barnes, preferably get Matt Barnes in foul trouble, get him frustrated, maybe even kick him out. And you know, with that beard, you can't really tell when James Harden's talking trash, so he could sneak in some some trash talking in there. And I guess I was kind of right. He had 34 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds in their last meeting in L.A., and they won that by a couple of points. So see if he can recreate that.
So, all right, we got some other stuff we got to get into outside of the series. We've got some awards that were just handed out. We'll get to that in 60 seconds here on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Welcome into the NBA Lockdown podcast alongside Israel Gutierrez. I'm Jorge Sedano. We've got the Most Improved Player Award that's been handed out. Jimmy Butler wins it, followed by finishing second was Draymond Green, and in third was Rudy Gobert. So you had Klay Thompson at the beginning of the season. That was your preseason prediction. I was kind of in on you. I'm surprised. I'd like to know, and I haven't seen it, where he finished, if he finished in the top 5. But what were your thoughts on this award going to Jimmy Butler, and where did you vote here at the end of the season?
Well, yeah, I picked Klay Thompson in the preseason to be most improved candidate. And he made me look good for a little while, but probably leveled off after the All-Star break. And he ended up finishing in fifth, which is good. He had 2 first-place votes, probably a bit much, 8 second place and 8 third place. But so it was Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Rudy Gobert. My ballot had Jimmy Butler 1, Hassan Whiteside 2. It was just an awkward vote this year. And then I had Klay Thompson 3. So I gave him one of those third-place votes. Part of the reason I look at, and I didn't have Rudy Gobert on there, is because if you look at the minutes jump, and this is kind of where, it's just like MVP. There's no real way to define most improved. Like Hassan Whiteside was odd because he was out of the league. And so how do you go from out of the league and then playing a year and playing significantly and playing well and calling that most improved when really you weren't in the league? Well, he was in the league in 2010, struggled, gets back in the league and improved so much that he, had a significant impact on not a decent team, but on a team. And so that makes him an improved candidate. So I sort of convinced myself that, hey, that should be part of the equation. Rudy Gobert had a huge jump as well, but he did it from going, 9 minutes a game last year to 26 minutes a game this year, which, of course, your production is going to be higher when you go that much more, when you basically triple your minutes. Now you're going to argue with me, and this is my Hubie Brown, but you're going to say, okay, well, why can't you say the same thing about Hassan Whiteside? His minutes went from 0 to 30-some or 20-some. It's like, also true, but you knew Hassan Whiteside wasn't good because you saw him in 2010. Rudy Gobert, had he gotten 26 minutes a game as a rookie, probably would have looked very similar to where he looked today. So not a knock on Rudy Gobert. I just think it's a matter of opportunity for him, whereas Hassan has made a sort of a 5-year gradual ascent. So that's why I put him there and not Gobert. And then Klay, and then Draymond Green. Draymond Green, I think, deserves that. I do. And you look at his minutes from last year, 21.2 to this year. So he basically got 10 more minutes a game. But what he did in those 30 minutes a game this year was way more than just increase his scoring by 5 points. He became, probably the second most important player on that team behind Steph. So I think that is a huge jump, and that's a huge improvement. And then who am I missing here? Who was third? Jimmy Butler. I mean, I think he's the perfect example of what a most improved player is, because he had the exact same number of minutes last year. Okay, 38.7 minutes last year, 38.7 minutes this year. He ramped up his field goal attempts by 4. Was that out of necessity? Not necessarily. This team was supposed to be better than last year with Pau Gasol, with a healthy Derrick Rose. But in increasing those 4 field goal attempts, increased his field goal percentage from 40, or just under 40, to 46. And so basically everything got better. 3-point shooting from 28 to 38. Scoring from 13 to 20. Like, that is the definition of the most improved player, in my opinion, is a guy who basically has the same opportunities as the year before, but refines everything that he does to the point where he's an all-star. And that's exactly what Butler did. So I thought it was deserving. I thought it was good, smart voting by, all the people that voted.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there's a lot to argue here, to be honest with you. And
the thing is, the only thing you could argue probably is second, third, and fourth or whatever, but that's a useless argument because, history, what does that mean? But but it's at least interesting to talk about.
No, yeah. I'm with you. Look, I thought Whiteside, again, he got 5. I think he got 5 first-place votes. Is that right?
Yep, 5.
And Hubie, I think, was one of them. I know you made you channeled your inner Hubie.
Well, Hubie loves Hassan Whiteside. Like he called. Here's the thing: Hubie called the game where Hassan had the triple dozen in Chicago and fell in love with the dude immediately. And the 2 next games, if I remember correctly, that he did, one of them included that game against Dallas in Miami where Hassan had like 16 rebounds in the first 10 minutes of the game. So Hubie had plenty of opportunities to look at Hassan and say, well, that dude deserves something. So he gave him a first place, which, again, I can't really argue with. But to me, in sort of the classic case of most improved, Jimmy Butler is the guy.
Look, there's not even a debate in my opinion. I think the voters definitely got it right. Gobert was really impressive, though, man, at the end of that season.
Yeah.
I think Utah was a real formidable team, especially on defense, and really it all revolved around him, I thought.
If they were in the Eastern Conference, they would not only be a playoff team, but they'd be a scary playoff team. That's how well they played after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be better than Toronto, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm with you 100% on that. So, all right, you got anything else you want to throw in here before we close shop today, or what?
I think the playoff gods provided us with so much distraction from Deflategate. I think we should just honor it and say thank you, NBA, and move on and hope that we get more of this.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed we don't have a game today, though.
Oh, yeah. There's that.
Dang
it, I'm going to have to read about Tom Brady's balls again.
Or you know what you could do tonight? Catch up on your DVR.
That's true. I still have some better calls.
Dude, I've got like 6 months worth of stuff in my DVR. I would need to just like go and just take a leave of absence to catch up on my DVR at this point.
I recommend it. Actually, I might want to do that. Thanks for the idea.
Yeah, I can just imagine. Can you connect me with the bosses in Bristol, please? Yeah, I need to take a leave of absence. Why? Is there something wrong? Everything okay? Yeah, I just need to catch up on my DVR.
DNP DVR. That's what's on my.
Hey, it can't be any worse than Tim Duncan. It can't be worse than Tim Duncan. DNP old at one point, I believe, this season.
No. Yeah. Although he's old, but he's young enough to go at a club wearing, a ribbed sleeveless tee, which is not an old man's look. Let me rephrase
I know,
that.
he has changed his style, man.
It's either a very old man's look or a very young man's look, and he is neither of those things.
He has changed his style, man. I will give him that. I don't think there's any doubt, man. That his new girlfriend, Amin pointed this out when we were talking about it the other day. His new girlfriend, man, has got him. He no longer looks like he's on that, on the old 90s alternative rock look, you know, like the Seattle grunge look.
Yeah, he moved up from mid-90s to mid-2000s. In another 10 years, he'll look like the rest of us.
Hashtag hate hard.
Hey now, are you anywhere from here on out playoff-wise? Are you
I
just,
am everywhere, George. I am everywhere. No, I don't know yet. It's all fluid.
Okay.
It's all fluid. Not sure yet.
I see. Well, anyway, good catching up with you, man. And we'll talk to you guys. We'll talk to you soon. And thanks for tuning in. I would say enjoy the games, but there are no games. Enjoy catching up on your DVR, and we'll be back for games tomorrow. Again, Monday through Friday, we're here for you on the NBA Lockdown Podcast.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.